Thank you and welcome. Let the roll reflect that all the council members are present. We do have a determination of quorum, and council members, are there any corrections to the minutes of the workshop of meeting of June 3rd? Okay, seeing none, they are approved. Comments from the audience. At this point, we will ask if there's anyone that would like to make any comments to the council about anything that is not on the agenda or the consent agenda. Is there anyone here? Yes, please step forward to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Patrick Kelly. I live at 321 West 11th Street in Hastings. I didn't see your agenda, so I'm guessing you're not going to talk about drinking water tonight, since you talked about it a few meetings ago, or maybe last meeting. But that's why I'm here. Our drinking water in Hastings has been compromised, and because of that, you've added chlorine to our water. Now, that water has an awful smell. You turn on the shower, you get that smell. Turn on your faucet, you get that smell. It's not healthy. Now, there's all kinds of documentation. You can go out, do the research yourself, and look at some of it. But I just did a quick search on some of the issues. The New York Times, a tiny risk in chlorinated water. Chlorinated drinking water has been linked to small increases in the rate of rectal and bladder cancer in a new analysis by researchers at Harvard and the Medical College of Wisconsin. That's online. Also, there was a study done by the epidemiologists, study of drinking water, chlorination, and female cancer mortality in Wisconsin. It says in here that widespread exposure to low levels of chloroform and other trihalothethamines, I think is how you say it, became apparent. However, the nationwide water survey found that these components to be pervasive in municipal water supplies disinfected with chlorine. Again, that's by the state of Wisconsin. Here's another one. It's Global Health Center. What are possible symptoms to exposure of toxic levels of chlorine? Research has shown, however, that long-term exposures to chlorine leads to production of free radicals within the body. Free radicals are carcinogenic and cause tremendous damage to our cells. Sorry. According to a Belgium study that was released in 2003, such irritants called trichloramines are released anytime chlorinated water reacts with organic materials. Trichloramines are believed to initiate a biological process that effectively destroys the cell barriers surrounding the lungs. Another article here, three ways chlorine in drinking water harms your health. And that was put out by a blog on Unlikely Health. It says, unfortunately, what has long been overlooked are the potentials and very dangerous health risks that everyday exposure to chlorine can have on our health. One of them is it kills the good bacteria that we need in our GI tract. So not only does the chlorine kill what we're asking it to, but it kills things within our body that we need. Another article here by the Food Revolution. Is drinking water with chlorine safe? The shadow side of chlorinated water is becoming more apparent all the time. They give a nice history in this article of the chlorination, dating way back to 1897. But again, it talks about those trihalomethanes, which are produced with the organic materials in our water. As scientists have looked into the potentially dangerous effects of chlorine, the use of this chemical has been linked to a wide range of ailments, including various cancers, reproductive problems, problems with the immune system, and heart attacks. A study which analyzed thousands of cancer deaths in the U.S. found that drinking chlorinated water appears to increase the risk of gastrointestinal cancer over a person's lifetime by 50 to 100%. They also have 400,000 infants in Taiwan that drink the disinfected water by chlorine, is having problems with cleft palates, brain development in these children. So as you can see, I can go on and on. This is page 3 of Mercola, another report out there. So what are documented side effects of chlorine? The startling evidence could shock you into making choices which might just save your life. According to the U.S. Council of Environmental Quality, the risk of cancer to people who drink chlorinated water is 93% higher than those who drink water who's not chlorinated. Even in the Department of Health's guidelines for drinking chlorinated water. During water treatment, chlorine can combine with natural occurring organics to form compounds called disinfection byproducts. They call them DPSs. DPSs can cause negative health effects after regular long-term exposure. That's our Department of Health. So what happened this past fall, according to the folks that I've talked to here in the city, as well as the Minnesota Department of Health, that someone was doing some flushing, and we had a bad valve, and put some contaminants back in our drinking water, which caused an E. coli outbreak. Because of that, we've chlorinated our water, which I feel it needed to happen, right? Because we had bad water. We had to have good drinking water. But it seems the problem is on the lower end of town, the low pressure area. So I asked Carla Peterson from the health department, is our water contaminated coming out of the ground? No, it's not. We have 2 wells in town that are contaminated. Those feed the lower part of Hastings. So then I asked her, so if it's not our drinking water, what is it? And she says, well, it could be a number of things. And I said, okay, like what? Well, she wouldn't really go into specifics. I said, but is it our infrastructure? If we're talking about the lower end of Hastings, it's the oldest part of Hastings. So our water's coming in good. Somewhere it's getting contaminated. That's in the city infrastructure. So why are we going to poison all the citizens of Hastings when we need to replace our infrastructure and update it? Do we have a problem on the new side of town? No, because they have the new pipes. I can also research Germany. There's a few other countries, the Netherlands. They're taking the chlorination out of their water and they're replacing their infrastructure. And they're not having to chlorinate any longer, reducing the health issues that some of their citizens are having. So City Council, I ask that you would do your research, look at the infrastructure within our city. It's old. Hastings has been here a long time. And do what's right for all the citizens, not just the ones today, but the ones that'll be here tomorrow, including our children. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Council, are there any other council items to be considered? Okay. Council, can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Councilmember Leifeld, second. Councilmember Fulch. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Tonight, we will hear from Melanie Lammers on the upcoming bond sale. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Fassbender, members of council. We have a resolution in the packet tonight to set the sale date for the issuance of bonds in 2019. And to talk to you a little bit about that issue, I have Jessica Green from Northland Securities here. They are our financial advisor.
Madam Mayor, Council, good evening. As Melody mentioned, you do have a resolution before you for consideration this evening, providing for the competitive negotiated sale of $3,935,000 in general obligation bonds, Series 2019A. You do have a finance plan that's in your packet this evening, so I'll walk through that quickly, and then, of course, if you have any questions, happy to dive into that further. So starting in the finance plan, the executive summary can be found on page 3. And just the general terms of the bonds are listed here. So proceeds of the bonds will be used to finance improvement projects here in the city, along with a water project related to those street improvements that are occurring, and then pay costs associated with the issuance of bonds as well. The bonds will be considered general obligations of the city. Special assessment revenues will be pledged to the payment of the bonds, as well as net revenues from the water utility as well. And then the remaining amount will be made up with a debt service levy. The bonds will mature annually, February 1st in the years 2021 through 2030, so structured over 10 years. Interest on the bonds will be payable beginning August 1 of 2020 and semi-annually thereafter. The average coupon from the preliminary standpoint that we're looking at is 2.07 with a true interest cost of 2.24. We won't know the actual numbers until we go to sale that morning, but that's what we're looking at right now based on current market rates. The optional call date will be February 1 of 2028. And we will be seeking out a rating for this issue. Currently, the city is rated AA by Standard & Poor's, and the last time the city was rated, you did receive a stable outlook, so we would hope to see that affirmed. The bonds will be considered tax exempt and bank qualified. Should the city move forward with a resolution that's before you this evening, we would go ahead and set the sale date for July 15th of 2019, and we would hold that sale at 10:30 a.m., and we would solicit bids on the city's behalf. And then we would come back before you that evening on July 15th for your consideration. Moving forward into the finance plan, you've got the general issue and overview showing the sources and uses of bonds. You can see the street improvement portion and then also the water portion for that issue size of $3,935,000. The bonds will be issued pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 429, 444, and 475. These are bonds that the city has issued in the past, improvement bonds, so these are very familiar to the city. The bonds will be structured over 10 years with relatively level annual debt payments. And again, the city will be using or offsetting the debt payment with special assessment revenues and then net utility revenues from the water fund. And then going back further into the finance plan on page 6, you can see the preliminary debt service schedule for the issue in its entirety. So looking at a total principal and interest of around $445,000 per year. On the following page, you'll see that improvement portion. So the principal amount there is $3,120,000 for a total fiscal total, so that's your principal and interest per year of around $350,000. Going onto the next page, you'll see the water portion. That portion, the principal amount is $815,000. And the total principal and interest per year is right around that $95,000 mark. And then the improvement portion, again, can be found on page 9, and that just splits it out into the total principal and interest, less the special assessment revenue that you're planning to receive per year, and then the net levy amount. So right around $150,000 is what the planned debt service levy would be for this issue. And then lastly, I'll turn your attention to page 12, and this just goes over to the calendar for the issue. So you'll see that this evening, we're doing the set sale, or council is considering the set sale resolution. Should this go forward, we'd plan to hold the rating call. We've set that with Standard & Poor's this afternoon, so that would be held on the 26th, so next week. Standard & Poor's has committed to providing the rating by July 5th. And then, again, if council does approve the resolution this evening, we would hold that sale on July 15th, and that would allow for proceeds to be available on August 8th. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Council, any discussion? Any council discussion? I would need a motion to accept. Councilmember Brox, Councilmember Vaughn. Additional council discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next with us, we have our Energy Action Plan update. Next, we'll have Megan. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. Madam Mayor and council members, I'm here tonight to introduce the Energy Action Plan. There are no formal requests for any action or financial requests for this plan before you. In just a moment, I will ask Marissa Baer, our Excel Energy Partners and Energy Community Facilitator, to come up and present the Energy Action Plan to you. But first, I thought I would give you a brief history of our Partners in Energy plan, or our Partners in Energy history. In November of 2017, we applied to be part of Excel Energy's Partners in Energy. In February of 2018, we were accepted into this. And before the workshops began in June of 2018, the city recruited diverse team members that consisted of Hastings residents, community leaders, business owner representatives. They weren't actually business owners of Hastings, but they were local business representatives. Councilmember Fulch was part of this. Representatives from Excel Energy, Dakota Electric, Minnesota Citizens Utility Board, CenterPoint Energy, Hastings Environmental Protectors, Hastings Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. And then in the past 8 months, we have been having workshops. We had a small focus group on business, and we developed the basis of what became our Energy Action Plan. So with that, I'll have Marissa Baer come up and present that to you.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Again, my name is Marissa Baer. I'm with Center for Energy Environment, and I am an Excel Energy Partners and Energy Community Facilitator. I helped your community, as Megan mentioned, a very diverse group of stakeholders through these planning workshops, create your energy vision, create an energy action plan, and hope to help guide your community through implementation as well. Starting out, just want to acknowledge the team. Megan gave a great background of the diverse group that we had. We, as she mentioned, representatives from businesses, residents, the three energy utilities that serve Hastings were part of this. City staff, Councilmember Fulch were all involved to really make sure that this plan represented Hastings' vision, that it spoke to your community, that had the same priorities that this group thought was important to your community. So just wanted to acknowledge, we do have a few of them in the audience today, and just want to say, extend a thank you from our perspective. They were really great to work with. They were very passionate, and hope that this is reflected in the plan that was in your packet and in the presentation that I give you tonight. So starting out, just want to do a little bit of background about the Partners in Energy planning process. So first, a question we get a lot is, what is Partners in Energy? And it's a 2-year collaboration with Excel Energy to help communities like Hastings develop and implement your energy plan goals. Excel Energy is here to provide the tools and resources to communities to really enable a community-driven and data-driven energy planning process. There's also support for implementation as well to make sure communities are able to hit the ground running and actually implement the strategies that they outlined through this planning process. A question that happens a lot is, why is Xcel Energy doing this? So just thought I would touch on those. So first, really helps Xcel Energy develop a better understanding of the energy needs of the communities that they serve, and also better align those services then and programs with the customer needs, and hearing from community members that are in their service territory that they may need this, or they're really interested in this, or this type of information, such as, I do want to subscribe to renewable energy, but how much is it going to cost me? They can share that information and know that maybe other community members might be interested in something similar. And finally, just really strengthens the relationship with the community and support Xcel Energy's philosophy of community engagement. The graphic that you'll see up on the screen is just kind of what we show in terms of the timeline of the process. So usually about 6 months of planning or so, and then that leads into an 18-month implementation period where Xcel Energy, through Partners in Energy, is here to help support the community, as I mentioned, and I'll detail a little bit more about the resources and what that support looks like later on in the presentation. Also want to just give you a background of the development process. As Megan mentioned, there were 5 planning workshops that the Energy Action Team attended. In addition, there was a business focus group to really focus on what strategies and resources do local Hastings businesses need, what priorities might they have, what are they concerned about, and making sure that the strategies outlined in the plan address that, and then also the future messaging during implementation will have that message as well. And in addition, the team kind of did some homework in between. There were surveys, there was email follow-up, so a really great engagement from the group throughout the process to make sure Hastings' vision and Hastings' voice was represented in the plan. As noted on the screen, the group reviewed data, created a vision, set goals, and developed strategies. I'm hoping to just detail a little bit for you tonight what the vision and the strategies that they hope to implement are. And in the packet goes a lot more into data, but maybe just at a high level to let you know. So in 2017, Hastings spent $14.5 million on energy. So that includes electricity costs, natural gas costs for both residents and businesses combined. And something that really kind of came up during the process was that, is there a way and an approach to help businesses and residents save money and keep that money here in Hastings? And then in addition, just kind of from a data perspective, when you look at the total energy consumption within the community in 2017, residents consumed 54% of all energy, and then commercial and industrial sector consumed the remaining. And when we say commercial and industrial, that can mean anything from your downtown businesses to the city of Hastings to larger manufacturing businesses that are located in your industrial park. So next I want to cover with you energy priorities and the goals that were set by this community. So kind of the first approach we do during a planning process is to set an energy vision. Partners in Energy's been now participated in 21 communities in Minnesota, and as part of this approach, being very community driven, is that it's not a cookie cutter plan that we go to every community, that it is very unique to the community, that it is really speaks their voice, speaks their priorities, and one way to really accomplish that is to have the group set an energy vision. And I'll let you read it up on the screen, but just kind of the few things I want to pull out to highlight is the group thought education and engagement was really important, that there are resources available, and getting that word out to the community to let them know that they're available can be really impactful. You know, folks may not know that you might be installing a new central air conditioner and there's a rebate available to you to help cut down on your upfront costs. They also thought residents and businesses were very important to highlight, that this is not just targeted to a certain part of Hastings or it's only small businesses. It's that everyone in the community can benefit from this outreach and engagement, and that energy saving behaviors can impact anyone in the community. And something that really also stood out was quality of life and then saving energy and saving money. Before the planning process, we did a pre-workshop survey just to get to know the team. So when the facilitators came in, it's just, all right, who's in the room? Do you live in Hastings? Do you work in Hastings? And one of the questions we ask is, why an energy action plan? Why is an energy action plan important to your community? And really what rose to the top is that Hastings has a great quality of life, and it's important to that energy action team that it is preserved and enhanced in certain ways. And then also that saving energy and saving money is also important, that keeping the cost of living low, and that, you know, looking at that $14.5 million that was spent on just energy, that there may be opportunities to save money. Also part of the process is the group set focus areas. So 3 focus areas rose to the top. The first is in the column you see is residential energy efficiency. As I noted earlier, 54% of energy in 2017 was consumed by residents. So they are the largest total energy user in the community. So it's important to make sure that they take energy conservation or energy efficiency actions. The second was business energy efficiency, that you have a vibrant business community and there's priorities that they have, returns on investment, and there's a way to make sure that even though there's a smaller number of businesses, a few energy saving actions, approaches that they do to save energy can have a really big impact on the dollars saved in the community. And then those are dollars saved that they can further reinvest in their business, further economic development priorities. And the third focus area was electric vehicles. This was chosen based on the fact that the City of Hastings has already done some work or either completed or is in the process of doing things related to electric vehicles that ranged from participating in a cohort called Cities Charging Ahead that just looked at peer sharing among communities in the state of Minnesota about EV approaches, that you did a fleet karma analysis to learn about is there a possibility to electrify the fleet. And the group really thought it'd be an opportunity to say, all right, City of Hastings has already done some of this. This is what they learned. Let us share that information with other businesses who might benefit. And also outlined on this slide is what we call energy actions. So the group looked at data, they looked at ways to save energy, they looked at programs and rebates that are available from the energy utilities that serve this community, and what are the best ways to really meet the needs of this community. So this can range from, under residential energy efficiency, completing a home energy audit to help a resident learn how their home uses energy and opportunities to save. Something that I think resonates with a lot of people that we learned after this winter was ice dams. And ice dams are typically caused by energy issues. And that's where properly insulating and air sealing your home can help prevent that and not only save the potential damage from an ice dam, but also make your home more comfortable and potentially lower your energy bill during the winter. So that resonated with the group. In terms of business energy efficiency, letting people know there's financing options available to help up with upfront costs. And if a business is already planning to do a project, here's some money to help you pay for it and let them know about it, but then help provide guidance for applying equipment or rebates, get that information out there to the business community, either through the city website, the economic development initiatives the city's already doing is there with the Chamber of Commerce. Christy Bars was really great in saying, yep, let me know what I need to send out and I will do it. Because I think my member businesses can benefit from this information. And in EVs, as I mentioned, helping share information that the city has already learned through their process, but then also just getting similar information out there. EV adoption is rising, and when folks Google stuff, maybe they do go to the city first to get information. We did a resident survey that's like, who do you trust to get energy information from? And the City of Hastings is top of that list. So let's make sure that information is available. And through all of those actions on that slide, there were some near-term targets that were set to say, okay, let's set some near-term targets, some goals looking at past participation with this additional education and outreach. What do we think Hastings citizens, Hastings businesses will participate and save energy? And if reaching those near-term targets in 2019 and 2020, there would be a 19% increase in combined gas and electricity savings, and approximately $1.5 million combined between the residential and businesses saved in this community. That's $1.5 million that could be reinvested here, either in the person's home, the person's business, or spent in the community. If they maybe have an extra $50 a month, that can be really powerful for certain households who may be spending a little bit more on energy bills. And this is just kind of looking at the impact to say, if we are able to move forward, we are successful, which we believe Hastings will be, is that there's going to be a positive impact in the community. Next, just want to kind of close out with implementation planning. As part of Partners in Energy, a really important component is that the Partners in Energy team is here to help with implementation support. It's not just here's a plan and then we walk away and let you figure out what to do. We're really here to help guide and support this process. And kind of the items on the screen we kind of call our Partners in Energy toolbox. So there's kind of 4 ways we categorize our support. The first is marketing and communications. As you noted earlier, Hastings thought education and outreach was really important. And we have a design team to be able to create custom materials that look like a Hastings document. They're co-branded. It can range from anything to a flyer, to a brochure, to website content or a social media post. We have some outreach outlined in that. It may be really effective to highlight some newsletter articles, and we can help put that together with Hastings' team. Another key component of implementation is data tracking and measurement. Not only knowing how is Hastings' energy snapshot changing, but also, let's say there is a big campaign push over a 3-month period, and looking after those 3 months, was there an impact if, let's say we really targeted businesses to say, sign up for these free energy assessments, they're available, and looking maybe a little bit later, did businesses sign up? Was there an impact? Did they move forward with these recommendations? To be able to really say and measure not only are people signing up or people are getting the information, but people are actually participating and saving energy or saving money. And that reporting comes on a biannual basis, so Hastings will be getting reports at the beginning of the year for the previous full year, as well as a biannual to kind of a mid-check-in point. Third bucket we have is program expertise. We are able to answer questions we've heard from communities to say, I really want to talk to my renter population. What can they do? And we can respond and answer and say, you know, some of these are great resources. These are organizations that can help this population or help these businesses, these residents save money, and able to explain that. We are here to be the experts to understand the eligibility requirements and what information is important to share, instead of saying, put this material together to talk about low-income programs and, you know, Google and figure it out. We're here to help you and be a support to help put that information together and be the experts if there are questions that come up. And kind of our final bucket is project management. So community facilitator would be a lead project manager for the 18 months and checking in with the city lead, which Megan would help support. And that can be anything from a biweekly check-in call. And we're here to make sure stuff stays on track and to help coordinate the different initiatives to make sure everything's moving along and provide that support as part of our toolbox. And then in addition to implementation support, other stakeholders, something that was really highlighted in the plan that you'll see in a few things is it's a community. This is a community plan. This isn't a City of Hastings plan. This isn't Partners in Energy plan. This is Hastings Energy Action Plan. And some of the key roles for City of Hastings is just acting as a main point of contact during implementation, having someone here in the community we can talk to, ask questions, make sure stuff moves along. Another big thing is leveraging existing communication channels, points of contacts, and events you might already have going on. A great example that we've seen is if, for example, a resident wants to apply for a permit. They may come to the counter, they may look online. With your existing website, with your existing kind of structure, we could create a renovation flyer that is posted on the website when if someone goes there and Google searches, how do I apply for a permit? It could be available hard copy at the counter as well. So really a way to plug in to say, you're already talking to your residents, you're already talking to your businesses. What are the ways that we can plug in an energy efficiency and energy saving message to really leverage that contact that already exists, rather than let's find a new event we can do, or let's find a new way to target our businesses or talk to our residents. Really leveraging what kind of already is in place here in the community. And then kind of with the city, just engaging staff, engaging the council members here and community stakeholders to support the energy action plan. It can be really powerful if Mayor Fassbender comes out and says, I had a home energy audit and I had a great experience. Let me share about that. I saw a video last week earlier where it was like Mayor Monday or something, and you did a brief video, and we could help create that video. We could help get your energy audits signed up. And you share that message and show the community that you support that type of action can be really impactful. And then in addition to Partners in Energy, City of Hastings, there's a community call to action that the community is also a part of this, ranging from the Energy Action Team to other volunteers to other community partners such as the Chamber or other associations that could help spread this message. And similar to what I had just mentioned, supporting the Energy Action Plan and engaging in these energy saving behaviors that are called out in this plan and called out as a way to save energy and save money on your energy bills. If volunteers are available, tabling at a city event and leveraging some of their communication channels that they have, it can be powerful to have a table at maybe an event that's already happening and they hand out some flyers, or they're able to sign up folks on the spot maybe for a home energy audit or to share information. Establishing partnerships with different business organizations, local service providers, electric vehicle organizations to continue to be partners. And then also sharing testimonials and their experience with energy conservation, as I mentioned, not only from leaders in the community, but also just if someone recognizes, hey, this is my neighbor down the street and they did it, I could probably do this too. Or a business, a restaurant down the block did an energy assessment and saved a bunch of money. Why can't I do this? And being able to share and say, there are people in your community taking these actions, and you can also do it too, and that it's, here's the resources available on the city website, available in different communication channels to help you do that. And with that, I open up to questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councilmember Leifeld?
I don't really have any questions. I just am so excited to read through this. I read through it previously when we got the packet and listening to you and following along. And I love the fact that as a city right now, we're focusing on what we can do as a city. However, this puts it out to everybody in the community. What can everyone do individually within their own homes? So while people are talking to us about what are we doing as the leaders of the community, what is the city doing? This is fantastic. And just thinking of my own friends and thinking a number of years back, people who did these sort of things were just, it was more about not so much being conscious of what they're using, it was about saving money. I want better windows so my electric bill goes down. Now we've kind of come full circle, and of course we all want to save money. Like you said, that $50 is going to come back to the community when they go downtown or, out for dinner. So that's a huge impact to the city. But this here, I just love the fact, and I hope everyone who's listening really thinks about this, and it's looking at what can we do to reduce, our footprint, what we're going to be leaving behind for our children and our grandchildren. And Tina, thank you, and to all of the people who've been doing this. What a great presentation. And I've never been more aware of the world than I have been since I started on council. It really brings everything to the forefront of your brain, and it really makes you think about things that we take for granted every single day, flushing, the toilet and turning on the tap water and running it while you brush your teeth. Who does that anymore? You shut it off while you brush your teeth. All of the simple things that we're doing, and I just want to say thank you for this presentation. It's really impactful to me, so thank you.
Councilmember Brox?
Thank you. I just have a question about incentivizing people to participate, because I know that there are people who will automatically hear the vision of what you're trying to communicate and will get on board. A lot of people that are in this room that have been on the team will do it. We will do it. We will lead the effort. But how do you get people who may not see the importance? They'll hear the messages, they'll watch the videos. How do you incentivize those people who may be kind of to get on board and utilize the program? Because I think, at least in my work, a lot of times we send out surveys and people don't reply to the surveys, but once you offer them an Amazon gift card, all of a sudden they're willing to respond to your survey. So what is the Amazon gift card feature of this program that we can offer to people, other than you will save money? But I think people are a little skeptical of that message, even though it's true. What else can we offer?
Yeah, no, thank you, Councilmember Brox and remainder of the council. So it's a great question. It's one we hear in a lot of communities of, okay, as you mentioned, the folks who maybe participated in this process or hear this right away are like, oh, this makes sense, I should do it. But what about the folks who hear that message and just ignore it? Or they need to hear it 6 times before they finally say, oh, maybe I'll follow this link. And one thing we did during the planning process that we can really leverage is that we did a community survey out to residents asking them, how do you use energy? What do you think about energy? And then some kind of a little bit different questions to say, do you have any of these symptoms in your home, such as drafty windows or a really damp basement? Or you had ice dams this winter. Folks don't always see those issues and think, oh, this is an energy issue. It's just, I have an issue in my home, and being able to use this survey and going out to the community beforehand and not just use the message of, you'll save money, you should do it. There's other messages that might resonate with your community members, and we're here to make sure that that message isn't just save money, that it really speaks to other priorities or other things that they're concerned about. It can be a simple, we saw a community that we helped them put together a post about ice dams because it was during winter, people could look out their window, they could walk down the street, and it was so prevalent. And they're like, people need to know that this is a energy issue. It's not a roof issue. It's not a shingle issue, that it's related to insulation. We just helped get that word out through different points, and all of a sudden it's on uptick, and people making that connection of, oh, okay, I have this problem, let's do something. But also through the survey, not just waiting until people have a problem, that there's a preventative measure, and the survey can help inform to make sure the messaging we help put together in cooperation with the city gets to those folks who aren't just gonna respond to, oh, I can save money. Okay, I don't really believe you, but thanks for the information. But really saying, oh, I can make my home more comfortable. Oh, if I turn down my thermostat and I won't have this issue maybe at a certain point, or I should air seal this door, and that's why this room is so drafty. And, oh, I can get a rebate to do it, and, oh, here's a really easy resource to help me figure that out. So trying to just make it accessible, a more holistic message, and that it really is just, it speaks to the community.
Thank you for that. And I just have one follow-up question about tracking data. So as people get audits and they do start saving money, who is responsible to track the savings? Is the individual homeowner tracking that? Are we tracking that on this team? Like, how do we keep track of the data so that we can revisit it and see the improvement?
Yes. So, council member, so for the data, it's not on the city to figure it out, and it's not necessarily on the homeowner to say, oh, I had an energy audit and I saved money. I better tell someone about it. We, as through Excel Energy with Partners Energy, already are able to get that data, and as part of the implementation process is we provide biannual reporting with those numbers to say this is how many people participated, here's how much was saved, and then we're able to track that ongoing to see was there a dip, was there an uptick, and look at that data and be able to provide that to you, not only looking at the baseline, so the past 2015 through 2017, but also say, okay, starting now, looking ahead for the next year and a half, and even once you've wrapped up this process, beyond that for about 2 years or so, we're able to continue to provide the data to let you feel informed about how what your community is doing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the information.
Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate this, and I appreciate everybody's time for going through this. I think it's great that we're doing it. And I just got a question. You got the 3 different focus areas you talked about, and I heard a lot about energy efficiencies and saving money. I get number 3, it says the focus is on electric vehicles. And then on page 10, it talked about increased public charging infrastructure, and you connect it with other cities. Did the group talk about letting the private market take care of that and we just educate where they're at? Or are you looking, am I reading this to say the city should do that and we'll be operating the public charging stations?
So, Councilmember Vaughn, thank you for the question. I think that's a great point and a great clarifying question. So it did come up in the group to say, with a question of, can we make more people buy electric vehicles? And it really comes down to, you can't really influence the private market. It's really up to the private market to solve that. And there's a trend, and maybe the Hastings community will go with it. Maybe the Hastings residents or businesses aren't interested in it. But putting the city in the position to, one, share for the work they've already done, get that information publicly available, let people know that this is happening. If folks are interested, this is a resource. But then also, just as you mentioned, share, if you do have questions, this is the resource you go to. It's not necessarily influencing to say, buy an electric vehicle. This is why you should buy an electric vehicle. It's really to answer the question of, if you have a question about EVs, here's a resource for you, and it's just a way to help your residents feel more informed and more engaged.
Thank you. And a follow-up, Your Honor. I think that's great. I appreciate that. I did notice that, and as you talk about, as we implement it and they have questions, we appreciate Megan here, but I do see a lot of former employees, and I see actually a former resident on there. Will they regroup and say, oh, we got to get some more people in this, or do we leave with the Center for Energy and Excel to help educate?
So, also a great question. So, as Councilmember Vaughn pointed out, when this process first started, we did start with different city staff, and there are some staff changes going throughout. Now I'm working with Megan, who's been really great, and then looking forward to implementation, continuing to keep the existing energy action team engaged. If there are other volunteers, you'll kind of see outlined through the plan a little bit what is called a community call to action, to say other volunteers are always welcome. The more people who want to participate, definitely participate. That it's not just on Partners in Energy in the city and these volunteers can just walk away, but that there's an opportunity to say, here's what Partners in Energy can support, here's where the city of Hastings can step in, and then also for these volunteers, either through the Energy Action Team or other volunteers or partners in the community, what roles and responsibilities they could take on. And as you mentioned, doing a course correction, or maybe let's look a little bit later on, do we need more people? Do we need to approach this differently? We have outlined kind of in our work plan for implementation is to do a midpoint check-in to say, okay, we've been here for 9 months. How is it going? Are we engaging with residents? Are they responding? Do we need a correct course based on what we've heard or the data, or should we continue on and really champion what we've been working on?
Thank you. Council, any other discussion? Okay. Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to thank everyone that's been involved in the process thus far. You know, Xcel Energy obviously is taking the leadership, and the resources that they bring are really outstanding. But what floored me when I walked into the planning of the group, because I didn't have the opportunity to start with the meetings at the beginning. I don't think I came into the process until the third or the fourth meeting of 5. And I just have to say, I was so impressed with the fact that the other utilities that are within the community stepped forward as well, Dakota Electric and then Centerpoint as well, to provide, you know, resources and commitment to seeing, you know, successes for our residents and our business community. And so I don't know how common that is, but that was the first time I had seen that kind of partnership. And so I really commend you for that. So thanks again.
Thank you. Councilmember Brox?
I won't say much more because I already said enough. But I do own a plug-in hybrid. If you need someone to come and talk about electric vehicles or
Yes.
to tell my story why I got one, I do have some experience. I've had mine for a year and a half, so I'd be happy to help with that.
Great.
Thank you for your report, Megan. Thank you. And it is just eye-opening. Everything I agree with Lisa. What I'm learning too from a city standpoint now. So thank you for your time and energy. It's a
Thank
great
you.
report. Thank you. What? Yeah. Okay, now we have solar subscription. We'll discuss that with Julie.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Tonight, City Council is being asked to accept the recommendation of the Utilities Committee of the Council, which is to direct staff to prepare and release a request for proposals for solar subscriptions. So the city solicited proposals back in 2017. At that time, they chose not to move forward with any of the requests we received. At the council's April 1st meeting, this topic was revisited, and at that time, the direction was to send it to the Utilities Committee of the Council for their review. On May 20th, the Utilities Committee met and heard a presentation from Pete Lindstrom from the Clean Energy Resource Team. And at that meeting, Pete discussed a variety of energy initiatives available, the different risks, the rate types, and the historical trends of solar. And then the committee also discussed the need to establish goals for renewable energy and defining any associated cost. So at that meeting, the committee unanimously supported that staff prepare requests for proposals, and once the proposals are received, they have said that they would like to meet again to review them. So with that, I can answer any questions. Otherwise, the utility committee was Councilmember Balsanic, Councilmember Fulch, and Lund.
Council discussion, Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just curious if the committee talked about any changes, going through the dates here that Julie just talked about. We rejected it in October 2017. In 2019, according to our memo, it comes back. Councilmember Fulch asked us to relook at it. Is there anything different from 17 after we rejected it that we're going to do different when we go out to direct staff to redo the RFP?
Councilmember Vaughn, I don't think the RFP is substantially different, but, and Tina, you're more versed than I am, correct me if I go astray. The way that the rates are different than they were a few years ago.
Your Honor,
Yep.
and a follow-up to that, I guess what, I look back at why we rejected, and I remember one of them was the contract was long. We all agreed. I'm just curious, are we gonna put that in there to say, I just don't wanna waste staff's time or even a consultant or people that are gonna try to bid on it to say, is that still gonna be a trigger for us to say, again, it came back at, traditionally, solar are gonna come in at 25, 30 years, and are we gonna be right back to too long of a contract? I know that was a hang-up with me. I just want to make sure, and I think we should write it soon to say, you know, we're looking for less of a contract, 5 to 10 years, and if they don't bid on it, then we know what they need. I have a feeling we're sitting at a 25-year agreement again, because I haven't seen them change in the industry. So that's my only concern of us going out to bid on this again, using staff labor time and worried about people that want to bid on it. Let's not waste their time or our time if we're not going to change the way we're going to look at this. So, just my opinion.
Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Trevor, so feel free to chime in if you'd like to, if you have something to say as well. And so something, when we looked at it last in 2017, you're right, Councilmember Vaughn, it wasn't unanimous that folks had that same concern, but there were a few that did have that concern about having a 25-year agreement. And some of what was attached to that was the risk of it being over 25 years, and then the terms that were being provided at the time were such that that there wasn't assurances that over the course of that time period that we would see true savings, just in case, you know, something happened with the markets and we were locked into the solar subscription and electricity became, you know, cheaper than what we were locked in at. And so there were, you know, concerns around that kind of risk. And so what's changed over the last 2 years is those subscriptions that were available for those kinds of models, they're actually, they've been gobbled up. They've been taken up by other, a lot of governmental entities like school districts, counties, cities, and such. And so it's not available. And what's happened is that Xcel Energy has moved to a newer rate structure where it has risk taken out of it, where you know for certain for the next 25 years what your electricity rates are going to be. And so the potential savings aren't as much as under the original model, but at least it gives the opportunity for, you know, those entities that are a little risk averse to feel more comfortable in locking in on those subscriptions. And it's Xcel Energy who has actually negotiated those rates with all the solar providers, and so those agreements are all locked in place. Thank you. If Trevor would like to add.
Councilmember Lund.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, Councilmember, I think I did. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Councilmember Fulch covered it pretty well. I would certainly be happy to have it written in that we could look at 10 years or, you know, as an option, but from what we understand, 25 is kind of the status quo. But to say risk is completely removed, depends on how you look at it. So yes, then you know what you're getting into for 25 years. So is that less risky than we saw a couple of years ago when we did not pass it? Yes, in that sense. But you also don't know what it would be, what energy costs would be if you weren't on the plan in 25 years or 20 years or 15 years from now. It may be that we've locked into a known rate that is actually higher than we could get without the plan. So just as we talk about no risk, it's not no risk, it's just known numbers, which can be perceived as a lower risk approach to it, if that makes sense. I think that's kind of what you were hinting at. So there's still that, but that is the major difference. So if you say, well, what's really changed? If we just kind of take another swing at this? Well, we are, but I mean, that's what's being proposed. But what's different and why it's even at this point is because that known number is now there that we know we would be getting into, which before it was, I don't know, and it's a long time, which didn't sit well with the council at the time, so.
Member Brox.
So if that's true that the rate is locked in, so is it that we're gonna have a contract with Xcel, or we have a contract with the community provider and there's a guarantee from Xcel that rate will stay the same? Is that true?
Yeah, the second.
The second one. Okay, so it's possible, like, it's a fixed mortgage versus an ARM loan. We know what it's gonna be. The market could be higher or lower, but we know that we're gonna get a certain amount back because we know what the rate is. Is that right? Okay. And it would be helpful, just since I wasn't on the committee, I didn't see the presentation, so if we could pass it around, that would be awesome, just to see the information
Sure.
that was presented so we can all see it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vaughn.
Councilor Brox, that's a great analogy, because you're right, we are locking in for 25 years on a mortgage, in theory, is what you're saying, on a rate that we don't know what it's gonna be in the future. And in Minnesota, we're not deregulated, so Excel holds all the cards. We don't get a say, and hey, we can't refinance. We can't, because we're gonna commit to 25 years, where on my home mortgage, I can refinance if there's a better rate. So that's my only concern with, I still want to go reference back to what we did as a council in February as a workshop. This was not on the priority list. And then all of a sudden it came back again. And that's my question, why we're revisiting this, because we just heard a great energy action plan by community members, a council member was on there, and staff. And it said on page 28, the energy action team determined promoting renewable energy subscriptions was best suited as a long-term action after the energy action plan's message of energy efficiencies increase, comfort restored within the community. That tells me that we're supposed to be comfortable. Let's watch how we spend our money. Let's lower our rates as there. And then we get to go to renewable energy, because we just talked about it. We just said, great plan. And that group said, long-term, we should be looking at renewable. And solar to me is renewable. That's my only concern. I just don't, unless somebody puts something in front of me saying, here's what we're gonna do different, then I think, yeah, it's worth it. I appreciate the committee doing their time, but we didn't see a whole lot. We seen a memo that says this, and we had CERTS did that same presentation probably to us, or it's changed since then, but I still think this should be going back to a council workshop, that we decide what our sustainability plans are as a group is versus this, because I have a feeling we're gonna send it back out, we're gonna have a great discussion when it comes back in, and we're gonna be hung up on, well, that was a long-term agreement again, and then what do we do? Then it's gonna be down to the same discussion. So that's my only concern. Nothing has really changed. No one's told me anything different when we're gonna go out to bid after we did it last time, and we rejected it last time. Thank you.
Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Councilmember Vaughn, so when you're looking more holistically at what are the best things that you can possibly do to lower the carbon footprint of us as human beings in general, and then also, and how can you save the most money? Anyone would tell you that it's energy conservation and increasing energy efficiencies. That's the number one thing that you can do, point blank. No one will dispute that. And so, so the action plan focuses there first because it's the low-hanging fruit and it's the best opportunity as a community as a whole to get that message out. And so that's why when you look at of the spectrum of all the possible things that you could be doing, you know, that's why they started with more energy conservation and efficiencies and helping to simplify the message and help folks identify resources that are available, you know, to folks that are low cost or no cost. You know, there's like a number of opportunities, for instance, for businesses to get audits for free, and then there's low cost financing that's available for businesses as well through the St. Paul Port Authority. And so there's those kinds of opportunities, and so that's really why they were starting there with that kind of messaging. I wasn't there the first 3 meetings, as I had said, and so the group did recognize that renewable energies is a goal, and so instead of addressing renewable energy, they looked at EV charging instead as the third priority as a renewable source in electricity. We know that electricity is going to be moving towards renewables, and then also it has a lower carbon footprint, you know, overall. And so that's some of the reasoning, just to help, you know, answer that question as to why Partners in Energy was going with that messaging. And so so it's also a separate issue, looking at, we know that the city of Hastings, for its own operations, will be using on average, I want to say it was 4 megawatts of electricity. It's somewhere in there between 4 and 5 megawatts of electricity. Julie said that they were trying to get the final numbers that were updated to know what the city's overall energy consumption is. And so, so the city does do what it can, you know, to increase energy efficiencies, like changing out light bulbs and helping to renovate this building as a for instance, so it's not leaking quite so much. But when you look at, of that electrical consumption that we do have, how do you get the best rate? How do you save money on the energy that you do use? Do you look to renewable energy sources? And as I had presented before, I can't even remember off the top of my head how many local governmental entities that I identified who are looking to renewable energy as an option to save money for the electricity that it is using. And so it's kind of, you know, two different issues per se. One is how do we conserve energy, and the other is how do we save money for the electricity that we do consume. And also, not only would we be saving money potentially, we could also be helping to lower our carbon footprint for the environment. And so does that help answer your question, sir? Thank you.
Councilmember Vaughn?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It does. That's a discussion that I wanted as a council, that we discuss what we want to do as a body and representing the community of, is that our goal, is to lower our carbon footprint, or is it to use less power, or what? I don't know what we're doing, and I trust staff is doing their best when it comes time to do it, but I want to lead by example. What we just heard is, why don't we wait 18 months and see how well our city's doing as an operation, to see if the community's doing well by lowering their utility use? We should be waiting 18 months too to say, hey city, if we're at 4 or 5 megawatts, are we down to 3? Then we're doing a good job. Then I'm ready to look at just what they recommended. Long-term plan, we look at some solar options, because we are in a mode of saying we need to use less power, because I know that 50% of the power that's produced is wasted power. So we need to make sure that we're using less power. You admitted that is the number one way to save money, is to use less of it. And if we can make those investments, maybe that's where we're at, and we go back to risk versus reward. And that's a conversation I would like to have with all of you, is should we put that on the private sector? We tried it before, McKinstry comes in, or somebody gives us a bid saying, we'll do all this for you, and we're gonna take the risk. The city won't have to take it, we'll provide this much dollars, and you're gonna save that much money. I'm willing to look at that. It's probably gonna be a 20-year contract, 25, but at least the risk goes on the private sector, not on the public sector. Just my 2 cents. And again, that's why I'm hung up with why today versus let's wait, because I don't see any changes to what it was before. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Liefeld? Oh. Okay. What's that? Okay. Okay. Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to clarify, when you do look at doing energy efficiency measures, typically there is an upfront investment that needs to be made, you know, for any home or business, when you're looking at doing that, right? And then you calculate what's your payback over time. Sometimes you're super lucky, you get 7-year payback, sometimes it's a 30-year payback. It just dependent. I know, I'm talking to the choir here. I know that you know these things very well, sir. But with the solar subscription, there is no cost that's associated with it. It's an opportunity to right away move forward in a direction that immediately begins to save the city money over the long term. And so at this point, it's my understanding that the request for proposals is already pretty much finished, just waiting on one little number from Xcel Energy, and then it can be released, and we can see what the potential proposals are that come in, and then we can do that analysis. So thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. So if it's almost ready to go out, are we just using the one that we had last time, or have we been working on it before we agree that we should not be sending this out? So I'm a little cautious on that one, because if that's the case, if it's almost ready to go out, that means it's just like last time. And that's, again, goes back to my point. I don't think it's what we voted on last time. If it is, I think we'll be back here in 30 days or whatever, and we'll look at it and we'll go from there. But my opinion is we're just going a little too fast.
Thank you. Councilmember Lund?
Thank you, Your Honor. I understand where you're coming from. I just want to clarify, it's not, we may be asking for bids again, but what's available is going to be different than we saw last time. So just, more of a point of clarification, it's not going to be a carbon copy of what we saw before, because what we saw before won't be available. So the main differentiator, and you may not like that, that may not be enough for you, and that's fine, but the main differentiator is going to be that we would be, I'm assuming, presented a long contract, same as last time. Difference being, we know what to plan for our energy costs, or this portion of our energy costs for 25 years. It's going to be this much every time. So we're going to know what we're walking into when we budget for energy. Whereas the plan before, you did not know that. Trends suggested that you were going to come out ahead. My concern, and others, was that what if you don't? And what if it's significantly you don't, right? Well, you couldn't budget for you don't. In this case, you would be able to budget. So I guess that would be the silver lining in it. You still may not be ahead as compared to not having the contract. So that would be the negative on it. But it's not exactly the same as last time. Just point of clarification.
Thank you, Councilmember Lund. Councilmember Brox?
So I'm wondering if we can at least make the people who are responding to our RFPs aware of the obstacles that we have seen this issue before, that we have significant concern about the length of the contract, variability of terms, the future of the market. There is legitimate concerns to doing a proposal like this. So maybe what we can do is, I'm not suggesting we rewrite the RFP, but at least make them aware of those concerns and say, we have talked about this before. These were obstacles for the council in adopting a solar garden subscription. Is there any way that you can overcome one or some of these obstacles to make it a better deal for the city of Hastings? I don't think that would take a huge amount of effort, and that could be done easily, and possibly we could get some better proposals.
Thank you. Council, would you, or
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the request for proposal for solar subscriptions I'm not gonna amend it, but with the understanding that we would also make them aware of the obstacles that we've already faced and the things that the council was concerned about last time we had this discussion.
thank you. Second? Councilmember Liefeld? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion prevails. So tonight we have with us Jim Miller, who will provide us with an update on the city administration hiring process. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you again for the opportunity to be with you this evening. And we have a very important decision to make this evening, and that is for you to give guidance to the ad hoc committee excuse me, that you appointed at your June 3rd meeting. As you'll recall, they are now the group that will be doing the interviews of semifinalists with the goal of selecting a smaller number of finalists for you as a whole council to interview probably sometime around the middle of July. I understand that that date hasn't, or two dates haven't been picked yet, but that's tentatively the plan. You'll recall that we had 43 applications for this position, which was about the number that I anticipated we would get when we started several months ago on this process. And once the deadline for applications had passed, which was May 31st, I began to, obviously I read them as we get them, or I get them, but in detail look at the applications and to get a better sense for how I thought that applicant pool sorted itself out. And as a result of that, as you saw from the rather lengthy memo you got over the weekend on the candidates, I have broken the applications into 3 categories that to me seem to best represent the relative status of those applications that we received. So in the first category, there were 10 people that I thought before I did interviews with them, I thought were likely candidates, good candidates for your consideration as semifinalists. Then there was a smaller group in the middle of candidates that I thought had something to offer, but in some cases it seemed that their experiences were either duplicative or perhaps not as substantial as some of the other candidates, but nevertheless, they're good candidates. And then there was a third category of applicants that are qualified, but they're just, I don't think were qualified for this position, and they weren't recommended for any further consideration. Ideally, what we would like to have this evening is you to identify the number, the candidates that you want to have interviewed as semifinalists. I would encourage you to not identify more than 8 candidates. I think that just becomes too unwieldy and in some ways diminishes from the effectiveness of the group process. I would also remind you that we are not able in a public meeting to divulge names or employment information or anything personal that would reveal where this person might currently be from or what his or her background is or his or her name is. So it's, it's unwieldy, but the only way we can really have this conversation this evening is by reference to numbers and then more generic questions and more generic answers on my part. But hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions to your satisfaction if you have any. But again, at the end of this discussion, what I would ask you to do is to identify by number the candidates that you would like the ad hoc interview committee to interview. And those interviews will begin on Wednesday and are scheduled to continue next Monday evening, late afternoon and evening as well. You'll recall that from the report I sent you, I identified 6 candidates that I felt pretty strongly about in terms of recommending to you. And then of the remaining 4 of the 10 that I interviewed, there are, I think, some other, there's options for you to think about. So I want to emphasize that it really is your choice. It isn't my choice. And the fact that I've identified 6 that I'm comfortable with hopefully is helpful, but that's really all it can be. It's your decision on the candidates that you want to interview. And so with that, I'm happy to try and answer any questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. Council? Discussion? Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. And thank you, Jim, for doing that heavy lifting for us. We greatly appreciate it. And your expertise in this field is very valuable. And so thank you for working with us on this project. Were you asking for us to have a conversation about how many candidates to actually interview? Is that what I just heard you say? You would like for us to definitively say a number like 8 or 6 or?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Fulch, yes, and specifically the numbers related to those candidates so that the committee knows who to interview. So we're picking you're picking semifinalists. The ad hoc selection or interview committee will be doing the actual interviews.
Mayor?
Councilmember Brax?
So what I would suggest, as the chair of the administration committee, is that we approve the 6 recommended. And if you have an additional person that you'd like to add as a semifinalist, that you would identify them by number. So we would approve the 6 that Jim has selected with the addition of, if you have someone that you'd like to add from the 4 that were also could be considered. I think that would be the motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Vaughn?
Thank you, Your Honor. Jim and Councilmember Brox, my question is, role play this out. What if we pick 6 and we go through the interview process? How fast do we notify the other candidates? Because would we know maybe after the first, say, oh, don't contact them yet, we want to bring the next 4 in? Is that something, or would you recommend that we contact them now to let them know that you weren't selected as a top?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Vaughn, what I would normally do in this process is to notify the candidates in that last category that they're no longer under consideration. And I would let the other candidates know that the council is proceeding to have discussions with several candidates, but the process is still open. and they're still in competition for the position.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, so I'll accept a motion. Oh. Councilmember Brox?
So I think the motion should be to accept the six semifinal candidates that have been recommended to us by Mr. Miller.
Okay, I second.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Brox? Sorry, Balsonic. All those in favor of the motion? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails.
Thank you,
Again,
Madam
Jim,
Mayor.
thank you for your
You're
time,
welcome.
and we look forward to seeing the results.
I think you have some good candidates. I think
Thank
you'll
you.
be pleased. One question before I go, if I may, of the ad hoc interview committee.
Sure.
With only 6 candidates, it's possible, I know there is a difficulty in trying to schedule these interviews, and I'm not suggesting that you change the dates at all, but it's conceivable that you could do all 6 on one of those 2 evenings rather than splitting them into 2 evenings, if you find that more convenient. And you don't necessarily need to tell me this evening, but if, we need to know at least by Wednesday, I guess, because we need to schedule interviews.
I'll just chime in a little bit. We do have some courtesy to the candidates to let them know enough in advance, because we have them scheduled for this Wednesday and next Monday.
Right.
So, and we also need to set up technology to make sure that we have all of them set up via Skype. So, if Wednesday is your preference, I would appreciate knowing that first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, maybe we would look to next Monday to do all 6. We can start them at 4, and we conceivably will be done about 9 p.m.
Unless you just want to keep it the way it is and bifurcate it, have some on Wednesday and some on Monday. You'd have 3 and 3, I guess, is how we would do it.
I am open to suggestion. I would like to hear from the committee what their preference is.
Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would give candidates the opportunity, since it's kind of short notice at this point. I had thought maybe that you had already started filling slots for interviews, and so I know that that's really short notice for folks to do an interview on Wednesday, and then if they can't do it on Wednesday, to allow for Monday, right?
Right.
So, and I don't care if you want to shorten. I know Councilmember Lund had some conflicts maybe on Monday evening, and so if it helps to reduce the number of hours for you to make it so it fits your schedule a little bit better, I would welcome that as well, because I know you were making some kind of accommodation to be able to make those meetings.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate the consideration, but I've moved things around. I think, to your point, let's give them the flexibility so that it's not stressful for them.
Madam Mayor,
So let's leave it as it is.
I'm sorry. All 10 have been apprised of the options, so they're holding both dates, so this isn't a surprise to them.
Okay, thank
So it will
you.
be a decision that will be made by Jim as to what day we do it. We won't ask the candidates to poll. I mean, that's our decision as the city, when you would like to interview.
I think that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, council, any other announcements? Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to provide a quick update to the Dakota Broadband Board, which I was appointed to last year. And just a quick refresher is that the Dakota Broadband Board is an interagency group of, it's the county taking the lead, and then it's 11 of the cities here in Dakota County that have come together with the goal of connecting all the cities from Burnsville, then over to Apple Valley, Rosemont, Amber Grove Heights, Mendota Heights, Farmington, Hastings, maybe I'm missing 1 or 2 in there, but that group, to lay high-speed fiber. And so with the hopes, not only to have great connectivity for our cities, it will also help provide redundancy for business continuity purposes for all of our governmental entities, and also, and then leveraging having the initiative together to help lower pricing as well, to manage all this fiber and infrastructure. And so I've been quiet on it for the last several months because it's really been a lot of the foundational pieces that have been put in place, like literally agreements for who is going to be the the accountant. Lakeville stepped up, and then Farmington stepped up, and they'll house the employee, and then going through the hiring process for an executive director. And so that's what I wanted to let folks know, that, so the group has just given an offer to a woman. Her name is Sarah Koch. She is coming from the Met Council, and she will be filling the role as the executive director for the group. She officially begins on July 27th. And then coming up in the next few months, the board together is planning to do some strategic planning initiative to lay out a work plan, roadmap for her for the next 2 years. She was given, it's like a temporary contract, so it's 2 years, and so we'll hear more about it. I'm hoping that she comes before the council and provides a good overview of all the goals once they're set in place. And so I was told that there will be an opportunity for the mayors and the city administrators to meet her at the next, there's a mayor-city administrator meeting coming up in the near future. And so she'll be at that, and she'll provide a quick, hello update, a little background information about her. And so I had asked for them if they could, one of the first things that she could perhaps provide is just a short presentation about where we've been the last year and a half, and where she's planning to go, what some of her initial, goals are. And then also, I brought up the fact that we need to start thinking a little bit more longer term, if there's gonna be an ask to the city council. In 2020, we're going through our budget cycle pretty darn quick. And so we really need to know if there's going to be additional funds that we should be thinking about for next year. And I don't think that that'll be much. I'm a little bit more concerned about, in the next 2 to 5 years, what should we be thinking about and planning for if there are opportunities there. So that's a quick update, and I can answer questions if anybody has a question. Thanks.
Councilmember Lund?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. I'm glad that you're on it. I'm glad that, that there's a group forming and there's some real movement. It's incredibly important. We talk about transportation, we talk about infrastructure, we talk about how do we get businesses to want to be here, how do we get residents to want to be here, how do we, get people to work and all that kind of, things are going to change pretty significantly where, the road is actually the internet in a lot of cases, right? So, people work from home, that's one thing, but if you don't have that strong infrastructure of data, you're not going to have businesses that want to do business in your neck of the woods. So I think it's a good play. What I'm building up to now is 5G is knocking on the door here, and that's from all that I, have read is going to be significantly better than, fiber and whatnot. And so I'm wondering what have you talked about in this group as far as other alternatives, or in preparation for when 5G becomes a mainstay in the infrastructure of a city, and does that group have some role in that, or is that a completely separate thing? I'm just curious what that conversation has been so far, and then if there hasn't been any, I'd really like to know what that looks like.
Sure. Councilmember Fulch.
Councilmember Lund, so it's my understanding that the amount of fiber that they're putting in is enormous. It's a huge capacity, and that they've been very forward thinking about just what you're mentioning about how we know in the next 10 years, 5G is going to be rolling forward, and our data needs for the city and the county are going to increase substantially. But what they're doing is, it's actually 2 phases. The first phase of the project is connecting all of the governmental entities with the fiber to make sure that our needs are met first. and that's referred to as the iNet phase. And then the second phase is the CNET, and they're placing enough fiber line down to offer businesses the ability to connect to that fiber line so that they can also, so they can create business opportunities as well, as you were mentioning, you know, and so it's meant to help our communities. So that's kind of, there hasn't been a lot of planning in regards to that second phase yet. And so that's kind of what I was alluding to, like, where do we go after all of the cities in the county are completely set and all their needs are being met? And so it's that visioning into the future. And like, just as a for instance, you know, if, I'm just making a for instance here, and this is like off the top of my head, like if, like for our industrial park, like if it was, you know, if there was a vision as we're moving forward that they wanted to have like high-tech businesses in that area, well, you know, perhaps, you know, working forward, there would be plans to extend it out maybe to the industrial park or another, you know, area, you know, to help so that businesses could use the infrastructure that's there. At all of the meetings, we do have Comcast representative present, and then also, oh shucks, I'm forgetting the second. It's one of the, is it Verizon or T-Mobile that provides a high-speed internet, wireless. I can't remember which one it is, I apologize. But they're there at all the meetings as well, and so. So that's what's interesting, and that's what I'm hoping for, that we'll have more community, you know, input in the future as we're moving into that CNET phase, so that there's more opportunity, like for HEDRA to get involved, or the chamber is fully aware of this, and Christy Barse, I believe she's taking kind of a neutral position at this point, you know, about the CNET, and so there's opportunities in the future, yeah, to have those conversations and do that kind of visioning with the business community.
Thank you.
Trevor, I'll just add a little bit context too. We've had a staff person assigned to this for the past few years since the inception of the group. And a main focus from the staff perspective has just been, they've spent a great deal of time just getting an inventory. What fiber do we have in the ground around the county? Who owns it? Which city is more invested than a different city? And trying to work on some sort of agreement as to how that's going to look forward, going forward financially. So we have a staff person, like I said, that's been working with the group for the last few years.
Great, thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, I have a few. The Heritage Preservation Committee will meet on Tuesday, tomorrow, June 18th at 7 p.m. at City Hall. The Public Safety Advisory Commission will meet Thursday, June 19th, 6:30 at the fire station. Make Music Day is this Friday, which is a wonderful opportunity from 7 in the morning till 9 at night to go around to various areas to listen to music. It's also the longest day of the year, so it won't get dark till nearly 10 o'clock. Planning Commission will meet on Monday, June 24th at 7 p.m. Finance Committee will meet Monday, July 1st at 6 p.m. to discuss the 2018 audit. And our next council meeting will be Monday, July 1st. So, thank you, and yes, Councilmember Balsanic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Probably should mention that most of us on the council and our city administrator will be going to the League of Minnesota Cities annual conference up in Duluth next week. Pre-conference begins on Wednesday. Next week, the conference goes through Friday.
Thank you. Yes. Councilmember Leifeld?
And to piggyback, Your Honor, on the Make Music Day, I wanted to mention a few things coming up in the parks down at the pavilion. As most people know, last week was the summer kickoff celebration. So tomorrow night at 6 p.m., there will be a performance in the park by the comedy sports team. 6 to 6:45, so just enough time for the little ones, and they can not out too late. Do bring your gnat spray or your vanilla. It really does work. For those of you not wanting to try it, it works. And then next Friday, the 28th, so there will be another movie in the park. Things start at 8, the movie starts at dusk, and they're going to be playing The Flintstones on the big screen next Friday night on the 28th. So just a couple other things at the parks down at the pavilion. Thanks, Your Honor.
And for more information on the parks, just go to the website, and all the events are pretty much listed for July and August already, too. So if there's no other announcements, council, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Liefeld? Is it Councilmember Brox? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. We are adjourned.